Okay, so side perspectives, geoflux here. Now I'm gonna try to keep this, woosah, within reason. So let's get into this. Shannon Sharpe. I've been saying this for years now, and I'm not the only one that has said this. Toxic masculinity, patriarchy, pedophilia, misogyny, pretty much has created a society where cisgender males in particular are socialized and pretty much encouraged to be predators and abusers. It just needs to be said, okay? And this isn't to say that cis women are not also participating in similar activities. This isn't to say that other demographics of people, other genders, sexualities are not participating in similar dynamics, because unfortunately we are all products of this toxic and oppressive environment. We are, growing up in this, getting force-fed the same toxic negative ideologies, except obviously depending on what your identity is, you do have a different experience in life, and you also have a different experience in how you are engaging with misogyny, patriarchy, toxic masculinity, okay, pedophilia, all of the whole 9 yards. Now, I'm 32 years old, and I have definitely had my experiences dealing with older men. And I'm here to tell you, a lot of cisgendered males, biological males, in my opinion, too many of them are red flags to tread lightly with them, if you get where I'm going with this. Here it is, you have a 60-year-old man engaging in an inappropriate relationship with an 18-year-old woman. And let's be real, right? And this is what I mean by the double standards and the hypocrisy. 18 is the legal age of being considered an adult, and yet the name is 18. So you're still a teenager when you're 18, okay? And at 60, you are considered a senior citizen at 55. And Shannon Sharpe is 60-something years old, bro. 60 years old, or, in that early 60 range. So in reality, you're old enough to be her grandfather. You were old enough to be her father when you were like 35, 36, 37, 38, 40. You're 60, bro. You're old as hell to be talking to an 18-year-old. And that is literally a 42-year age gap, a 42-year age difference. Y'all have nothing to really talk about. I mean, think about it. At 60 years old, what are you going to be talking about with an 18-year-old? When I was 18, my grandmother was 65. My grandfather was 64. So what at 18. You know what I'm saying? So this is why I'm saying I don't care. I'm gonna say it. It is all men until the majority of men start behaving better and start checking other men for their predatory behavior. Okay, for their toxic, dysfunctional, abusive behavior. I'm 32 years old. I'm not trying to talk to people that's under the age of 30. Okay? So when I'm sitting here at 32, what do I have in common with an 18-year-old? First of all, we're 14 years apart. So, like, literally, you are from a totally different mindset. You have had if I'm speaking about myself, I've had 14 additional years of lived experience in reality. I was in the 9th grade when you were born. Think about that, right? So when you start thinking about somebody being 60, talking to an 18-year-old, homeboy was 42 years old when you were born. He's old. He had 4 decades of life before you were born. And this is why I'm gonna say it. Most of these dudes are predators. I do not care. Everything about them is shady. I mean, and then it also goes to show you all of the allegations that are constantly being made against transgender people, trans people, LGBTQIA plus people, queer folks. It's projection and it's scapegoating, because you're constantly accusing queer folks of shit that cis men are doing, that cisgendered heterosexual men are doing. It's the cishet and the cis male that's raping your kids, sexually assaulting and abusing your children, sexually assaulting and abusing other men, sexually assaulting and abusing women. It's your demographic. Large percentages of your demographic are participating in this disgusting, predatory, abusive, toxic behavior on a consistent basis. And every time things like this happens, oh, it's not all men. All men aren't like that. Oh, how can you can't say that about all of us. But then, when something happens to somebody, especially when it happens to women, feminine people, then all of a sudden it'll be, well, you should have chose better. Well, you should have paid attention to the red flags. Well, you shouldn't have been so trusting. So now you're blaming the person that was sexually abused or groomed or molested or taken advantage of. But then when women and or feminine folks are taking precautions, aka starting to look at most of us, men in particular, cis males, as red flags, now it's, your standards are too high. You're too judgmental. We're not all like that. What is it going to be? Right? Because you can't sit up and say we're not all like that, but yet every time something fucked up happens, you can pretty much guarantee it is a cisgendered male. It is a man. It is a masculine person participating in some horrible shit. And then you gotta think, was Shannon Sharpe, waiting for her to turn 18 to start this relationship, this sexual relationship with an 18-year-old? Was he waiting for her to become 18 so she could be a legal adult? And these are the type of men, that's why I'm gonna keep saying, I've said this in so many videos, when you hear men constantly trying to defend people like Shannon Sharpe and people who participate in those types of behaviors, you need to start looking at them as potential predators and abusers. And 9 times out of 10, they're doing the same shit. That's why they're always, we're not all like that. Well, there's nothing wrong. She's legal. He's legal. They're legal. Yeah. This is why I'm going to keep saying you have to start looking at people like the red flags that they are until they prove otherwise. Because this is the type of mindset a lot of these cis males, cisgendered men have. Okay? This is exactly why you have all of these men that are fathers who don't want their daughters around when their friends come over. You know, you don't want your daughter to be in the vicinity when your male friends come over. Because you know your male friends are sexual predators, violent, abusive, and disgusting. And you are probably the same way, because I don't care what you say. Birds of a feather flock together. There's a reason why y'all are friends. You're not just hanging out with folks just to hang out with folks. Y'all be knowing that your boy has rape allegations against him all over the place. Y'all be knowing that, you know, this is why, even, and especially in the black and brown community, you know I'm about to go there. Y'all will sit up and be like, you don't want Pete around your kids, around your girl kids, around your boy kids. Folks will know that there are members in the family that are sexual abusers and child molesters, and yet still have them at the family functions. Because, you know, the sexual abuser deserves to have Easter dinner too, right? Not protecting any of the children, any of the women, any of the men, any of the boys, because that's the other thing that's completely left out, is boys and men are also survivors of sexual abuse. And it's often downplayed. Just like it's downplayed when it comes to women and girls. But we live in a society that claims to care about women and children, but yet every time you turn around, you're abusing women and children. You're hurting women and children. You're treating them less than. You're taking away their rights and freedoms. You're putting them in harm's way. But women and children are so important, and we have to save and protect them. Not to mention, you got grown women out here who are sexually assaulting and abusing men, sexually assaulting and abusing boys. You've got grown women who are child molesters. And I've talked about this before, but I have so many cisgender male friends, family members, who their first sexual encounters were with grown adult women or grown adult men. And they were not adults. They were teenagers, preteens, children. Dealing with grown women and grown men that were well over the age of 18, well over the age of 20, well over the age of 25, well over the age of 30 plus years old. Yet these grown women and men were having sex with a 12-year-old boy. Not to mention all the times, because you know me, I've had quite the experiences as an intersex trans man. I think about all of the inappropriate comments and compliments that have been made to me when I was a child, a preteen, a teenager. And these are from grown-ass men. Like, first of all, why are you looking at a teenager and sizing them up in the first place? And even if it's not a teenager, in general, why do we condition men to constantly think about sex and to constantly sexualize every damn body they see. And then it creates that predatory mindset because you literally think everyone is a conquest. It's all about how much booty, how much pussy, how much ass, how much mouth I can get, how much tail I can get. With no respect to the other person, their bodily autonomy, and you honestly don't respect yourself, because that's another thing. You know, you're 60 years old and you're sitting up here having sex in a whole sexual inappropriate relationship with an 18-year-old. And then oddly enough, in the US, you never know, because right now you're telling people that are under the age of 21 or younger in the queer and LGBTQ plus community, particularly for trans folks that are 21 and younger, they can't make decisions for their own body for healthcare, whether that's gender affirming care or non-gender affirming care. But in the same breath, a 18-year-old cis woman can make the decision to be with a 60-year-old man. The double standards and the hypocrisy is beyond me. But it just needs to be said. A lot of these dudes are not to be trusted. And I'm also talking about myself, because I'm a firm believer in it is all men until most men start checking the bad men, until most men start behaving like civilized human beings instead of sitting up here on the prowl. I mean, my God, how disgusting. Do you really? And then and Shannon Sharpe ain't the only one. And like I said, the women are not off the hook either. You sitting up here 25, 35, 40 something years old, and you are having sex with a 13 and 14-year-old boy. You don't see how disgusting and nasty that is. And then, like I said, you got, because of how sex is socialized with boys, cis men, they don't even realize that they're being sexually assaulted, molested, raped, abused. They're sitting up, oh, I was getting it in since I was 9 years old. Man, I've been pulling older women my whole life. Nigga, you're 12 getting raped by a 40-year-old woman. Oh, but that's right. Under patriarchy, the view is, well, women can't rape men because y'all only view sex as penetration. And she can't penetrate you, even though she can. People get pegged. People get strap-ons. And you know I'm about to ruffle some of y'all feathers, but some women have penises. Some men have vaginas. Some of you cis folks are walking around right now, and when they start doing these genetic testings to determine who's a man and who's a woman and who's allowed to go into single sex spaces, aka bathrooms, a lot of y'all are gonna find out that you're not who you thought you were. Because you have men who have XX chromosomes. You have women who have XY chromosomes. You have intersex people. You have trans people. You have non-binary people. So a lot of y'all are going to be in for a rude awakening when you find out that you're not cis yourself. But that's a whole nother... The point is, you can get penetrated by a woman, okay? And sex is not just about penetration. And it's all about grooming and power and control as well. Yes, there's sex involved, but a lot of these relationships with these severe overarching age gaps is about power and control. Because for the 60-year-old man, he knows that at 18, you don't have a lot of life experiences. You haven't even lived. You're just now becoming an adult. So here he comes. He can brainwash you and groom you to his liking. Okay? He can lie to you, manipulate you, and control every aspect of you. He's not going to have that much of a success with another 60-year-old woman or a woman that's in his age group. Think about it. She's a Gen Z, which means she was born in you know what I mean? She's Gen Z and he's Gen X. He's old as hell. Think about it. She's Gen Z, he's Gen X. Not gonna say most of us, but a lot of millennials, our parents are Gen X. So think about it. You skipped an entire generation and went to another generation. You old as hell is my whole point. You Gen X, you should be talking to other Gen X folks. Maybe an older millennial. Which your oldest millennial is 44 years old. That would be a better appropriate age gap setup, right? Because then it's like, oh, they're 16 years apart, but that's a lot better than you being 42 years apart. My goodness. Woo. So many people are just downright disgusting. And it just needs to be said. More information is in the description box below. I don't condone any of that. I view it as pedophilia. I view it as sexual predatory behavior that a lot of cisgendered males, a lot of cisgendered heterosexual males participate in. And then you wonder why you have the cisgendered male loneliness epidemic. Y'all are disgusting, sick, vile creatures. Way too much. Now, obviously, every cisgendered male, every cisgendered heterosexual man is not a sexual abuser, is not a sexual predator, is not taking advantage of people. But there's way too many of you that are. So we can't really pick and choose who isn't. Because the person that's typically in your face, smiling and nice and trying to get to know you and all that, are typically the ones that are going to harm you. Because if you ever notice, very rarely is your abuser somebody that you don't know. It's typically somebody that you have a rapport with, you have a relationship with, you have a bond with. It's a family member, it's a friend, it's a person you thought you were dating. Okay? It's typically somebody that you know, is my whole point. So you can't really go in this mindset of, well, they're not all bad, but there's too many of them that are, and I would much rather people be safe than sorry. And again, I hope for the cis boys, cis men, masculine folks, intersex men, trans men, masculine folk who have been survivors of sexual abuse, I hope you know you matter, and I hope you know what happened to you shouldn't have happened to you. You weren't the big dog on campus. You were molested. What does a 30-year-old woman or man have anything to do with a 12-year-old boy or girl or child? What does an adult have anything to be sexually aroused by a child? Okay? That's disgusting. And y'all, oh, but she's legal, y'all are red flags. That's why I keep saying, just pay attention to how men respond to these types of allegations and situations. It tells you everything you need to know about him. So many times, case in point, when I was talking about the Meg Thee Stallion situation back in 2020, so many cis males were siding with Corey Lame ass and blaming Meg the Stallion. And all that told me was, you're abusive and I don't trust you worth a damn. Not to mention, listen to how a lot of these dudes talk about women and sex in general. They don't like, I'm just gonna go on and say it, a man that doesn't like his mother, a man that always has something bad to say about the women in his own life, or he's always portraying himself as the victim in the sense of, hear me out, in the sense of, she did me dirty and them hoes. They feel entitled to your body. They don't see you as a human being. And if he's having all of these issues with his mother, the woman that created his useless ass, he is likely going to be abusive to you. And this kind of goes back to my whole point. A lot of these women, because again, you're not off the hook, a lot of these cis women are creating rapists, predators, and abusers. A lot of these boy moms are creating your next rapist, your next child molester, your next violent abuser. Because y'all either coddle and baby them and never hold them accountable, or you completely neglect them. There's no in between, it seems. It's just like when y'all see that y'all are having a boy, it's either you're babying and coddling him to the point that he doesn't know how to book his own doctor's appointments. He can't cook, he can't clean, he doesn't know how to communicate. He doesn't know how to reflect upon his own emotions because, you're telling him not to cry, be a man, then wondering why he's emotionally stunted and unavailable and immature and unintelligent. Yeah. Okay. Or you've got the mom that doesn't really like her son, her kids in general. You know why? Because you weren't supposed to be here. You know why? Because she was messing around with another toxic cis male that happens to be your deadbeat father who abandoned her. So what ends up happening in those situations? You become collateral damage. She takes out all of her frustration and anger on her son, on her daughters, on her kids, because she's mad at the man that abandoned her and abused her. So now you got the mother who's disrespectful, rude, verbally abusive, mentally abusive, physically abusive, really treats their son like shit. So he grows up hating women, hating feminine people, and not having a good sense of self. So it ends up being a reoccurring cycle, generational cycle of toxicity, abuse, violence, and trauma. And if people don't take the time to get into therapy and counseling, or let's just be honest, don't even have access to therapy and counseling, to mental health resources, they're going to relive the same shit. And they're likely going to pass that down to the next generation. We see this over and over again. I'm so sick and tired of these disgusting ass niggas. I'm just being real. I'm so tired of it, bro. Cis person, folks. I'm tired of it. Anyway, let me get in here and get my workout in. More information is in the description box below, but I'm about to go in here and get my workout in. That's some disgusting shit. And this is not the first odd thing about Shannon that has been brought to the table. And then there's all these allegations about the man's sexuality. And it's almost like he does things to prove to others that he's heterosexual, which is also a telltale sign that they're probably not heterosexual. But I'm not here to tell you about somebody else's sexuality, but anytime people have to perform shit, like they go above and beyond to prove a point, then they're probably not what they say they are. Again, I'm sorry, but if you're straight, you're straight. You don't have to go out here and, look at me, I get bitches at 60-something years old. Like, there's something going on internally with Shannon, okay? I'm just gonna be real on that. That's my opinion on that one. But, I'm out.